okay? You can hear me in the back?
Yes.
Been in California for about 20 hours. And it is great to meet people that I've only ever had a telephone or email relationship with. We established contact with people, including Marianne, who I've known for a long, long time. I'm not as young as she says. I turned 52 2 days ago. I like to think of it as a deck of cards worth of years. And I hope there's some left in the deck. So my plan is not to speak for a full hour and to leave time for a couple of questions if you have them at the end. I'm not sure if I can live up to my own expectations because my technique when I'm asked to speak is to write somewhere between 2 and 3 lectures and then deliver one of them. And for you guys, it's going to be more like 4 compressed into 1. So we'll see. And between last night listening to Martin and this morning, I put it all in a blender and chopped it up anyway. So I don't want to gainsay the challenges that Martin characterized last night. But I do want to say that the 20th century, especially the late 20th century, saw tremendous advances in civil rights, human rights, women's rights, the environmental movement, the democratization of the world. We're a long way from there, but we're getting there. And in peace. Fareed Zakaria is clear that we are living in the most peaceful time the world has likely ever known. Because of the media, we don't perceive it that way. But human beings alive today are less likely to die a violent death than any people who've ever lived. So as a sort of counterpoint to what you might see on the television that you don't watch, I wanted to offer that. When our government tortures people, it can't do it publicly, it can't invite us, it can't do it legally. It has to pretend that it's not happening. That's a huge advance, guys. I'm sorry to say, though, that although we've made huge advances in, let's say, protecting the physical bodies of human beings, we're maybe not quite so good at protecting the souls of human beings. We all, I include myself, among us all, engage in perhaps too much what I might call soul torture. And in order to live in the world, even if we're not torturing each other's souls, we have to develop soul calluses to get by. You can remember at all the sensitivity to the world that you had as a child, and then realize where you are now. You have a sense for the thickness of your soul calluses. Faculty meetings are excellent places to experience, you know. I have some challenging things to say today. I've learned over time that what I have to say from time to time is challenging. I don't do it to be provocative, I do it because I find it true. And in presenting things that may be somewhat challenging, it is not my wish to torture your souls. And so maybe I'll just mention that, yes, I've spent my adult life and my teenage years in Waldorf schools. I think that I'm teaching, I think this is my 28th year of teaching in Waldorf school, one way or another. And so, if I offer anything that's challenging, realize that I stand with you, and that you are my heroes in this, and it's because I want us all to be better than we currently much of a preamble, and maybe none of this will strike you as challenging at all, and that would be fun. Let's say that when you teach math to young children, you use little beings called math gnomes. And let's say you decide to go back and read what Rudolf Steiner said about teaching math, and what his colleague and pupil Hermann von Baravalli had to say about teaching math. There are no math gnomes. I asked Ernst Schubert about the math gnome. He said, "What are these math gnomes?" We don't have these in Germany. And when I talk about the math gnomes, I include the squirrels and the chipmunks, and the kings and the queens, and any, however imaginative, personification of spiritual realities. Because when you teach math, that's what you do. If I could sum up the book Balance in Teaching in one sentence, it would be something like this. Half of what we teach is prayerful and elevates the material to the spiritual, and the other half of what we teach is meditative and draws the spiritual down to the earth. You don't need math gnomes to do that. So, there's a little challenge, perhaps. And in the past, I've just sort of fired it out there and got on with my life. So today, in the interest of not torturing your souls, I'm going to add a little bit. So let's say that yesterday morning, before you left to drive up here, you drew some beautiful math gnomes on your blackboard, and you're all prepared on Tuesday when you go back to school to leap into teaching math using math gnomes. And here comes this jerk from Massachusetts to tell you you're wrong. Should you feel bad about yourself? Of course not. I think that a good way to go through life is to assume that everybody is doing the best they can. But if you're not open to change, you're not doing your job. I'm not open to change. I'm not doing my job either. So should you feel bad about yourself? Should you be angry at me? Goodness, no. Should you immediately adopt a new dogma? The anti-math gnome. No. Then you haven't fundamentally changed at all. You've just, stepped from one stone to a different stone. We'll talk about stones. I didn't intend to talk about stones, but we'll talk about stones a little more in the line. So what could you do? Well, if you've already planned it, I suggest you get on with it. And in the back of your mind, you will have today's discussion. And perhaps the way you teach will be slightly different, maybe not, who knows. But before the next time you teach math, you can read a little bit more, think a little bit more. Even if you choose to use the gnomes, perhaps be a little less ideological in your introduction of them. And I think, for goodness sake, if you have colleagues, younger colleagues who come into your school who choose not to teach math using math gnomes, or not to do an annual play, or not to paint in 4th or 5th grade, or, well, there's a long list coming up, be open to the possibility that they are just as true to Steiner's ideas about